Troubadour.
How's it going, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of Bassman Outdoors. Today we're going to be talking about something that I've kind of covered in the past. I've not really gone in depth on. I've shown you guys some of these. I've caught a lot of fish on these, so I want to cover it for people that are kind of wanting to get into them and just kind of show them different options, different ways to use them, different way to rig them, and kind of the setups that go along with them and the situations and the uses for them. So today we're going to be talking jig fishing. Now, for me, jigs have become either sometimes they're a last resort and sometimes they're the first thing on my rod. I usually always try to have a jig ready. I got different types of jigs. I got swim jigs, flipping jigs, and mainly football head jigs. Those are my top three I really like to use. I also like finesse jigs, and I've gotten to where I really like a shaky head too. So we're going to get into it. The first one I want to show you guys is the football head jig. So the name of this jig is pretty self-explanatory when it comes to the head. Now, what I want to tell you guys about this one is this is kind of a jig of its own because you do work it a little different than you'd say some of these other ones I'm going to show you. This, I actually had a little bit of a hard time with first few times I used it. I wasn't really all that sure about it, but now I absolutely love them. I can just smash fish on them. And if you guys give them a try, I think you could really learn to like them too if you've not used them before. Now, what I really like about these is I use them all through summer, spring, fall, and especially in the winter. I like different sizes of them. Some of them, like this Steel Strikers one here. I like to use these smaller guys on my light finesse rod for this time of year. Just kind of throwing nice and easy. But when it gets into summer and everything, and I'm doing more of a bait caster, and even in the winter, you can still throw these on a bait caster. This one's a Huntington Lures 1/2 ounce green jig, and also Huntington Lures trailer. And I've talked to you guys about the Huntington Lure trailers a little bit. I've shown you why I like them. Today, I will get into why I choose what trailers I do, and the reasoning, and my color picks, and all that. So, okay, so with this football head jig, for me, the biggest problem is it was a different type of action than I'm used to. I'm used to like a flipping jig to where I'm throwing it around brush and everything, and I'm just kind of taking my wrist and I'm just popping that jig around. So with a football head jig, what you actually want to do is you don't pop it. You just toss it out there. Now, football head jigs, you really don't want to lose bottom contact. They're big, they're heavy, they're meant to stay on the bottom, they're meant to get to the bottom quick. Another great thing about their weight is they are perfect for those long casts. We're covering a lot of ground, especially in the winter time. You can kind of cover a whole big area with just one cast, and they're slower. So how you're supposed to work a football head jig is you want to just toss it out there, let it sink to the bottom. Now, what I usually do is I like to give it a few jolts right after I think it's on bottom to make sure I'm feeling the bottom. So after that, what I'll do is I'll tighten my line, and I just give it about a few inches to a foot of a drag. You're just dragging it on the bottom. It's meant to mimic a crawdad just slowly crawling. So that's another reason it's so great for wintertime, is because it's on the bottom, it's around those lethargic fish, and it's slow. It's spending a lot of time in their point of view and in that strike zone. And even in the summertime, it is perfect for that. So, like I said, you just want to toss it and drag. Now, you don't want to drag too far, because if you drag too far, like I've done a few times, especially in the beginning when I start messing with them, is sometimes those fish will bite at the last second. Now, when that happens, you don't have a lot of room to work with, especially if that fish is just lightly picking it up. Enough for you to get a good hook set, but they're not grabbing it and running. Now, if they grab it and run, you got a little more time. You got a little more able to load up. But the great thing is about these is usually the reason I like to do a quick one is so I'll toss it and I'll let it sit and I'll tighten my line up here. And you don't want any slack in your line when you're doing these, and you want a faster gear ratio. I use the 7:3 to 1 Fluger bait caster for these usually. So what I'll do is I'll let it sink and I drag it just about there, and I will quickly bring up my line. Now, the reason you want to do that is so you can get a load up on if those fish grab it, so you can set that hook quick. Because for me, it's easier to have a quicker flick on the hook rather than trying to haul it all the way back. So I like a really good tight line. I always use fluorocarbon on my bait caster. I use 20-pound fluorocarbon because fluorocarbon doesn't have that stretch, that give to it, and fluorocarbon is really sensitive for you to feel kind of those lighter bites. Another one I want to talk about is one I use a little more towards the spring. I've thrown them around in the winter a little bit, just kind of played with them. But this one I've had a lot of luck in the spring, through summer situation, and early fall. And that would be a flipping jig of this kind of style. This is a little Stray King Bleeding Bitsy bait. This was actually the first jig I ever used and what got me into jigs. So on that jig there, it's a little different, a little more faster paced. So you can cast them way out there, or you can just kind of flip them around docks, brush, whatever. I like to do kind of all of the above. I really like to work them around structure, mainly though where those bass are hiding. Like on a pond I used to fish, there was always a tree that was falling down in the water. So what I'd do is I would come up parallel to the tree and throw that jig and hop it along the side, and it seemed like it would always get bass out from under there, because they're sitting under there and they're waiting to ambush something. So when they see a crawdad or something kind of hopping along the bottom, most of the time they'll go for it more than not. So what I do with these jigs, and I actually got a little finesse version on here, I'll show you. This is a little Bass Pro tungsten jig with a Huntington lures trailer. So what I like to do with these is I'll throw them out there, pitch them, whatever you want to do with them. Let them sink to the bottom, just like the football head jig. Then you want to tighten your line up, and just with your wrist, I mean, not even really with your whole arm, just more with your wrist, you just want to give it a sharp jolt. Now what that's doing is that bait is hopping on the bottom. So kind of like a crawdad when he's darting off, and then he's going to settle back on the bottom. He might sit there for a second, and then he's going to dart again. So what I like to do with that is, after that dart, because most of the time you want the fish to bite on the bait while it's sinking, not while it's jumping, because most of the time, kind of like the football head jig, you might be back a little far, or you'll have enough slack in your line to where you won't have a chance to really do anything. So pretty much what I like to do is hop, sit for a few seconds, let it sink, tighten slow, hop, let it sink. Because what you're trying to feel is, I always try to keep a finger on the line or my thumb on the line with the bait caster, is you're going to feel that sudden little bite on it, just them kind of sucking it into their mouth. Sometimes they'll grab it and run, especially if it's in the summertime. They're a little bit more aggressive. But for that winter bite, you're trying to feel that nice, solemn, steady bite. That's why I'll often switch to lighter jigs on my lighter rod. So that is the flipping jig, what I really like to use. The next one I want to show you guys is another favorite of mine, the Huntington Lures swim jig / flipping jig. This jig, the way it's designed, kind of gives you the best of both worlds. You can work it like I just showed you, or you can work it like a swim jig. Now, a swim jig, you work pretty much just like a swim bait or a crankbait. You just want to throw it out there and just burn it back. Not real fast, just kind of as fast as you feel like you need. But this one's also rigged up with a Huntington Lures swim bait trailer. I got this one to mimic a bluegill. I really liked the color, that bluegill color, and I've done really good with it in the past year. So I'm really happy to show you guys that one. So, okay, when it comes back to the winter time and the smaller ones, like I said, I always go with the small football head jig too. Now the reason I got this color set up is usually I like to match my colors. This is a Steel Strikers and a red crawdaddy color, but this time of year the crawdads, if they come out on kind of like a warm day, they do have that red tint to them. I saw one a few weeks ago at Lake Johnson here, and it had a nice blue tint to its claws. So that's why I kind of went with that. Yes, they are kind of bright, obnoxious colors, but right now they are natural colors. So that's one thing you always want to try to pay attention to with the jigs, is what you're trying to mimic, not just on the shape and the style and the motion, but the color. So like if it's real clear water, I will always go with a natural color. I never go with anything bright or vivid when it comes to these, especially on a football head jig, because those fish are having time to examine what they're looking at. Because with a football head, you're moving it so slow, it's not really a reaction bait. They're really looking at it, deciding whether they want to gulp it or just let it be. Now with your flipping jigs, that's a little bit of kind of a mixture of a feeding bite and reaction bite. I really like them in the early spring. Like I said, I like those natural colors or that black and blue, especially in mid-March to early April. The water's kind of muddy, it's kind of cold, it's chasing those fish up into the shallows. that's where a jig like that's really going to shine, especially in that darker colored water, because those dark colors, that black and blue, or that dark green, but more that black and blue or purple or whatever you want to go, is going to give off a silhouette. So they're seeing that silhouette, they're seeing that darting action, and they're reacting to it. They're wanting to know what that is. They're going to grab it because the fish don't have hands, so that's the only way he's going to figure out what it is if he bites it. So that's another good one. Now, another time I like to use it is early summer, around May, June, when they're spawning, because the one way these baits work really well, and you can do this with swim baits or even like tubes like I talked to you guys about in the last video, is you can pitch these over beds. Now, a lot of times everybody knows bass is going to be really protective of her bed. So, I mean, even a crawdad, if she thinks a crawdad is trying to get into the nest, mess with the eggs or anything like that, odds are she's going to pick it up. So that's another great time to use those. Now, I'm going to get onto a little bit of a finesse jig here. This one I'm kind of new to, but I really like so far. On this one, I got a Huntington Lure 6-inch ebony drop shot worm. Just like their other worms I've shown you, great action. You can do just about anything with these, just like their trailers, just like their other finesse worms, their swim baits, everything. Actually, I got another swim bait here, kind of hooked up on a little Ned rig that I've had a lot of luck with just swimming. So, kind of that nice little bait fish look, especially for fall time when they're chasing the shad and everything. But, so this bait right here, you can see, still got a football head design, but it has a little spring in here that's in the worm that screws into the worm, and then you actually take your hook and you place it in the worm like that. It becomes weedless, kind of like a Texas rig. Now this worm's going to sit on the bottom like that, the tail's going to stick up, and that tail's going to move and kind of flap around. Now how you want to use these with this type of rod, or any type of rod that you're throwing on, I believe you can get them kind of heavier, but what you want to do, I mean, and it's really all in your hand and at your wrist with this kind of setup. You want to toss it out there, let it sink to the bottom, kind of pick up your slack. I like to leave a little bit of slack in it to help kind of play, kind of like a jerk bait and or tube. So what you're doing is, it's all in my hand, I'll show you, is you're just kind of shaking that rod tip just a little bit. You know, you're just kind of shaking your hand, because what that's doing is that making that tail, especially the tail, just go nuts on the bottom. So another time, that's another good reaction bait and a feeding bait. I love it so far. I've actually had quite a few bites on it, and I've had a lot of fun with it. It's especially something new to me. You guys will definitely see me use it, especially in the summer when I'm switching finesse gear. So this is kind of an introductory video to jigs, like I said. Now, I want to get on trailers. So this is a Huntington Lure crawdad trailer. They also have beetlebug trailers I'm going to get here soon and try out and show you guys. But another video I posted, I love these trailers. I had it on Ned rig and you guys got to see it. I mean, they stand so perfectly. I mean, I've tested them even on this and this also. Both these football head jigs that are sitting on the bottom, hugging that bottom, these claws are still up in the air. And that's what you want, because it makes that crawdad just kind of look like he's just standing there. So when you're dragging it, those claws are kind of flapping around doing their thing, really giving it that good action, even on a much slower slalom bait. Now, another one I want to show you for a trailer. This isn't really meant to be a trailer, but I've actually used it because I ran out of trailers one day, and I had a lot of luck with it, is a Steve-O Strikers scented creature bait. Now, yes, this is kind of long, but to me, on a good-sized football head jig, yeah, you have a decent amount sticking out there, but it is effective. So, I mean, if you're around some fish, you think they're going to want to eat something a little bit bigger, but they're still hitting on a jig, or you really want to throw a jig, I would not go against throwing something like this on there. Not a lot of people do it. I tried it a few times. It's worked out really well for me so far. I will put links to all these in the description below with the promo codes if you guys want to order them. Check them out. Helps me out. Saves you guys money. But so that's kind of my spiel on jigs. Another one I got here is one more. This is a Strike King jig. But the reason this one gives a little bit of a difference to a lot of jigs is this little thing right here. Now, it does make it a little hard to put the trailer on sometimes. You do have to put it a little shorter on the trailer. But it also has a hook right there to help keep your trailer on. And what that is a rattle. So, for me, because jigs are genuinely silent baits, they're visual, But to me, that helps kind of give that sound appeal, especially if you're bouncing it on rocks and stuff like that. So this is kind of what I wanted to talk to you guys about. I hope it kind of helps you guys out with if you're wanting to try jigging. Like I said, match your colors. Keep it natural looking for the most part, unless you know for some reason that a different color is going to work out. Just try to keep it natural. Keep it simple with a jig. They're a great bait. They're a very versatile bait. They work about any time year round. You really just got to experiment with them, see what those bass really like. So, like I said, I will put links to these baits in the description below. Check them out. Thank you guys for watching. You guys have a good one.